O soup, two zeros, zero soup, was a northern Chinese style soup quite popular in Washington D.C. in the 1950s. It was so popular that one Chinese restaurant took another to the district court for the right to use the name. Today's episode is the first installment of our three-part series on the feud between two Peking restaurants in Washington D.C. Hi, my name is Christy and this is the American Chinese Food Show. The media had a field day with this case, making all sorts of puns. Owners of the Peking restaurant were displaying a vexed mane over chow. Cooler tongues prevail in saga of searing soup. Soup in the soup. Even the Washington Post couldn't help itself. Many fingers in broth. The story is quite simple. The Peking restaurant opened in 1947 in Chevy Chase in Washington, D.C. They offered quote-unquote Peking-style dishes like mushu pork and Peking duck. They quickly became popular among diplomats and local connoisseurs. The holiday magazine ranked the restaurant as one of the city's best. The Peking's new location in northeast DC didn't have a liquor license, so in 1953, one of the partners came up with an idea that maybe is not so smart. Set up a corporation under the name Peking Temple to sell drinks right next door and serve food from the Peking restaurant kitchen. This is where the problem began. S. Van Loan and Paul Dietrich, who were part of the Peking Temple, decided to purchase the Seafair restaurant 20 blocks down the same street and open up their own Chinese restaurant in 1955. Not only did they copy a bunch of items from Peking's menu, they even named their restaurant Peking Palace. The owners over at Peking restaurant were rightfully upset. They made a disclaimer in the newspaper and later filed suit against Long for unfair competition. We have the court document here. One of Peking's specialties is the soup called O soup. The soup is made of chicken broth, shredded pork, bean curd, crab meat, egg, and bits of tender onion. Peking Palace directly took it and put it on their own menu. This one is hard to defend because O soup was clearly created at the Peking restaurant. One of the partners told the story in court. A Chinese embassy official went to the restaurant and asked for a soup. So Mr. Lo, one of the partners, also the chef, made the soup himself. He invented many soup, O soup. The lawyer asked, how was the name for it selected? We couldn't find no name for the soup, so we just named 20 soup. Peking Palace argued that the soup takes its title from a staple of northern Chinese people called O Tao. So the defense lawyer brought in a few student witnesses. Philip Shah claimed to be familiar with Chinese cooking, but he also said there were only 3 classifications of Chinese food: Cantonese, Shanghai, and Peking. I think the people in Sichuan and Hunan even then would strongly disagree. Then he said O Tao is a very popular food in the northern part of China, eaten by common people, especially in Manchuria. It looks like yellowish stuff. Sometimes we can eat them dry like bread, sometimes in hot weather, supper time, put into a stew or water. And then another architecture student at the University of Maryland who conveniently worked at the Peking Palace, he called O Tao a Chinese password for poor people, made of corn flour like American bread. So I think they're talking about the steamed corn bun called wo to. I guess it could sound like O to. The business manager of Peking Palace even wrote a letter to the Washington Post saying this northern Chinese broth is in the public domain and shared the recipe. Fry shredded pork lightly, put in boiling pot of chicken broth, cut bean cake into long thin shreds, beat eggs and drop into broth, stir, add soy sauce, cornstarch, and sesame oil. So basically hot and sour soup without the hot or sour. You will use white pepper and chili oil for the hot and vinegar for the sour if you're making hot and sour soup. On top of the O soup, another dish called shang. Tsang, was also in question. I think sa sang sang is cao sam xin, 3 fresh ingredients stir fry. So this is a conversation in court. And what does this consist of? It is a combination with chicken and the poultry, pork meat and the beef, shrimp with vegetables. Now, how long has that been listed as number 31 on your menu? Since we started business 1947. And do your customers ordinarily call for it by name? They call for it by number since they cannot pronounce the name very well, so they just ask for number 31 from the menu. And let me ask you this, Dr. Liu. What proportion of your customers are Chinese and what proportion non-Chinese? I presume about 5% Chinese people. And does that mean that the balance is not Chinese? No, it's not Chinese. Now, have you examined the menu of the Peking Palace? Yes. And do you know what number 31 is on that menu? Yes, what it is. What is it? It is Sao Sang Xian. That is the same thing as number 31 on yours. Yes. Pretty much caught red-handed there. The defense attorney argued that it's just a complete coincidence. Yeah, right. The rub in the face is probably when Long and Dietrich left business cards and a sign at the Peking restaurant redirecting people to their new Peking Palace. Long argued the cards and the sign were delivered by a student artist from the university. The court case is fun to read because the defense lawyer argued that the use of a trade name which includes a word Peking that is geographical and descriptive should not have been restrained. A history professor from Georgetown University talked about how the main divisions of Chinese cookery are the northern, the western or Sichuan, and the Cantonese or southern. There is the less important coastal or Shanghai style. The Peking restaurant's lawyer responded saying the term Peking to a Chinese does not denote the style of cooking or a particular cuisine. Even to a Chinese, there is no such connotation. It is as if an American were asked if there is such a thing as Boston cooking. The answer would be no. There is a New England type of cooking, and there are such dishes as Boston baked beans, just as there is Peking duck. And probably most importantly, the vast majority of the clientele does not have knowledge of the various types of Chinese cuisine. Evidence indicated that Peking did not indicate a style of cooking, and certainly it does not have any such significance in the mind of the Washington public. The federal judge on the case awarded the Peking restaurant sole right to the names but declined to grant monetary damages. The conclusion was based on the finding that the word Peking is not descriptive of a style of Chinese cooking, but instead is an arbitrary or fanciful designation which identifies the restaurant to its patrons. Peking Palace appealed, lost again, and had to change its name. But don't worry about them. You'll find out why in our next 2 episodes. That's it for today's episode. If you like our content, subscribe to our channel. See you soon.